So, I hear you're flying solo.
It's time once again for another episode of Flying Solo, a podcast dedicated to discussions encompassing all aspects of the Star Wars universe.
I got a bad feeling about this.
And now, broadcasting from a room far away from his loving wife, Nikki.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're about to enter a territory possibly more unforgiving than a Sarlacc pit. You're now flying solo with your host, Steve-O Solo.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome to the return of the Sticker Podcast, Flying Solo, episode number 1, with me, Steve-O Solo, because I'm alone. Get it? Do you get it? I'm here by myself, so you should call me Solo. Steve-O Solo. All right. You get it. It is so exciting to be a Star Wars fan right now. And I am so excited to bring the podcast back with this little bit of a rebrand kind of thing, focusing on Star Wars, because there is so much to talk about. The plan is to hopefully do this every Monday, but that might be a lot to commit to every other week whenever I feel like it, kind of thing. But I'm going to try, if I could squeeze it into the schedule, every Monday. That's what I want to do. And hopefully it doesn't have to be a solo thing every single time. Maybe Nikki could join us. Maybe I could find some guests to bring on. Maybe this could be an inclusive thing. But for right now, baby steps, just starting out. The plan is to start this live on Twitch. That's the first place it's going to be. It's going to then get exported out onto YouTube, and then it's going to get exported out to all the various different audio platforms that y'all listen to podcasts on. The idea doing it live is to make it a live radio type of feel to it. Take questions from those watching, get comments from those watching, get the community interact with the community, and just talk it up and make it feel like a live experience. Our Twitch is twitch.tv/stickerg, STIKKERG. And we've got a special dedicated channel over on our Discord too. That link should be down below or in the description, wherever that lands for you. But we got a Star Wars dedicated free-for-all channel where we could just go in, talk Star Wars, whatever we want to talk about. Go for it. It's a lot of fun. It's turned into one of my favorite channels because, again, it is really exciting times to be a Star Wars fan. I'm actually a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. This actually makes me a little nervous. I have a script. I have a plan. And this last weekend kind of threw a little bit of a wrench into my entire plan, because Star Wars decided to drop 65 new pieces of content that's coming soon, and I'm very excited. I have basically 3 sections of this planned. It's going to be like an intro. I'm going to rank the movies, because I think that's always a lot of fun. As like, look, this is the first Flying Solo podcast. I want to be able to give y'all, the audience, kind of time in my brain and kind of show you guys exactly what I'm thinking about and where my kind of opinions and everything stand on Star Wars. And I feel like the movies are a great gauge for that. I think that is a really, really great, and it's also fun just to rank things and to talk about stuff and to go from there. And then we're going to talk about all the news. That'll kind of wrap up this whole thing and go through each show. Maybe not go through each show, but I'll list off the shows. I'll basically focus on the ones that I'm most excited for. And that's kind of the plan. I want to introduce myself officially to the Star Wars world and kind of lay out who I am, how far my fandom goes back, what I know, what I don't know, what I love, what I don't love. All right, so the first thing I wanted to do, and really explain why I wanted to do this, those who are here on the regular on Twitch, really can feel my obsessiveness with Star Wars. It's something that I love more than any other piece of content out there. Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, any of that stuff out there. Like, Star Wars it's not even a debate for me. It's not even a question. Star Wars is easily the number one thing that I love when it comes to content, and I love talking about it. Wrestling's up there too, but Star Wars absolutely crushes pretty much everything else. And, you know, this season of The Mandalorian has really, really, really kind of just raised the stakes. It's brought everything to a whole new level. It feels like after the prequel trilogy kind of separated and divided the audience, I feel like The Mandalorian is bringing us back together, which is, it's great. Like, I love being able to have hot, heated debates and talking about, like, oh, I hate this, or I love that, or you do this. And, like, I love those conversations too, but that stuff can be really toxic, and the fan base and the community needs to be able to come back and enjoy some stuff again. And I feel like we're there right now with The Mandalorian. Obviously, healthy debate is good. Opinions is what makes the world go round. We all have them. I think it what makes everything so interesting. If we all had the same opinion about how things worked, or if a piece of content was good, I think that'd be boring as fuck. I don't think that'd be fun. And as long as you're able to address your opinion, as long as you're able to have a conversation with people, I really feel like Star Wars is the best when it comes to having conversations. It's the best. I've been a Star Wars fan literally since I was a baby. I have a brother. He's 5 years older than me. Not to date myself, but I grew up right around a little after the first two movies came out. But I grew up on Star Wars. My brother was a massive Star Wars fan. He made sure to have all the toys. My parents, they enjoyed Star Wars too. So I had all the toys. I watched the movies. I was literally a diehard Star Wars fan as a baby. I loved it. It was great. It's my favorite thing in the entire world. And it starts all the way back then. And obviously, my knowledge, I put knowledge in quotes because one thing I do need to get out of the way, I am not an encyclopedia. I cannot retain information like some of these other folks can. I know plenty about Star Wars. I love Star Wars. But my knowledge of Star Wars is not what I'm here for. It's not about the knowledge. There are things that I'll see and it'll fly over my head at first, and then I'll be like, oh shit, that explosion was from episode 2. No shit. Like, it'll hit me later sometimes, but the idea that I'm in a cycle, like those folks over on the Schmodown would absolutely crush me in trivia, I would imagine. Trivia is not my thing. Seismic charges, yes, I do remember them. Yes, I have seen episode 2, unfortunately. But I am more about having an opinion and being able to deliver a well thought out opinion. And look, I am critical of Star Wars. I am critical of the things. I believe you can only be critical of stuff that you love. If you didn't love it, who cares? You know, it doesn't matter. If you don't like something, you're not going to be critical of it. You're not going to love it. The emotions aren't there. Having the ability to be critical with a focused eye on why you're critical, I think is so important. And I am hypercritical of Star Wars. The best ways and the most negative ways possible. So I'm all about my opinion. I'm all about delivering my opinion and backing up my opinion. I'm never just going to be like, oh, this is the worst because I said so. Like, that's not how my mind works. If I don't like something, I'm going to explain it. I'm going to break it down. If I like something, I'm going to explain it. I'm going to break it down. That's what I love to do. That's why I love debating. That's why I love discussing. That's why I love just, you know, my buddies would kill me because we would always debate sports and stuff in college. And it was one of those things where I would almost bring too much stats to the discussion. They'd be like, you're stupid, stop, whatever. But It's pretty wild. I'm all about having an opinion. I'm all about learning. I love learning more. I try to watch all these theory videos and all these history videos and all these information videos, and I like learning about the stuff that I'm not familiar with because I think it's important to learn and to grow and realize Star Wars is a lot bigger than a small bubble. Like there's a lot more to it, and I hope we could get out to that. But my knowledge, like I was saying, is really geared around the movies. All of the movies. I love all the movies. We'll talk about love of the movies later because we are going to rank today. We're going to rank some stuff today. The movies are the main source of my love, the main source of what I know. I have seen all of Rebels. I've seen every episode of Rebels. I think I watched like the last few seasons live. So I was very much on top of Rebels. I'm aware of all of them characters and everything that went on there. I've seen a lot of Clone Wars. I have not been able to sit down and watch every episode of the Clone Wars. It's just, there's a lot of them. The Clone Wars were on when I was in college. I wasn't watching animated Star Wars back then. I should have been because it's fantastic. But I have seen a ton of Clone Wars. Not all of it. I think I've even Googled like best Clone War episodes, and I went back and just individually watched certain things. So I'm pretty on top of the animated series. I have enough knowledge of the animated series to kind of talk about it and have opinions of it. I've read only one book. I read Catalyst. If y'all didn't know, it's basically a prequel novel to Rogue One, which was a fantastic book. And if you liked Rogue One, I couldn't recommend you reading this book. I didn't actually read it because I don't read. I don't read. I listened to it when I had a commute, but I highly recommend it for anyone I recommend it for anybody, because if you loved Rogue One, it's only going to enhance the story even more. And if you didn't like Rogue One, it might give you a little bit more context about what we're watching in Rogue One, which obviously the story is it's about how the rebels got the plans to the Death Star and were able to get the stuff done. But the story of the characters goes deeper. It's really hard to fall in love with a group of characters that you know are going to die at the end. So Catalyst does a really good job of giving you a strong base to the characters in that movie, which, as we'll find out later, Rogue One is my favorite of all the new Disney movies. I think it's great. I think Rogue One's a lot of fun. I have some knowledge of Legends material. I try to read and watch as much stuff on Legends stuff as I can, because there are a lot of really good stories out there, but there's also a lot of not so good stories out there. But Legends is important because I feel like that's some really strong source material for what Disney is doing now. And we'll talk about more of that later, of course, but like, they really need to take advantage of the really good content from Legends, specifically like Darth Revan and Mara Jade are two characters that I've read about, that I've learned about, and I think they both need to make it somehow into canon. I think they're fantastic characters. I think they're awesome. And I think we need like a legit Old Republic, like hardcore movie trilogy. Like, we need a hardcore, massive amount of Sith, massive amount of Jedis just fighting each other over control. Just, yes, we need that. I need that. I think we all, as Star Wars fans, would really love to really appreciate that. For those who have been on the stream for a long time, I have played only one Star Wars video game, Jedi Fallen Order. Cal Kestis, amazing. I think he definitely needs to make it into live action. We definitely need a Jedi Fallen Order 2, which I think has already been announced. I'm on Team Cal showing up in Mandalorian. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think that's really cool. And I didn't play The Force Unleashed, but I literally watched a video with every cutscene involved. Someone, you know how people take cutscenes from the games and make these long story videos out of them. I watched every cutscene from The Force Unleashed, so I know about Starkiller and Sam Witwer, also known as Darth Maul. So I need to get more into video games. I know there's a lot of really great games. They've kind of failed me on the computer. Because I played I tried to play Knights of the Old Republic, failed. My computer it was too old for the computer, so it didn't really work. So it was one of those kind of, all right, it's kind of been timed out. It's a little too old. I think that's everything in terms of Star Wars knowledge that I've consumed. And again, I'm hyper-focused on the movies. Now I'm going to be even more hyper-focused on shows. Whether they're animated, live action, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I'm not an encyclopedia. I have strong opinions, and I will absolutely 100% back all those opinions up with what I think is fair points and good homework being done and studying. And, I always like to try to craft an opinion based off of something. If I don't know something, I don't want to just be like, oh, that's not good. That doesn't do it for me. I want to be able to always back it up, because conversations won't last very long if no one has any knowledge of actually what they're talking about. And, it's kind of silly, but kind of is what it is. One of the things that I'm a big believer in is branching out. I'm a huge believer that Star Wars needs to branch out from the time zone that we're in. And I think this is a conversation point that we'll bring up again later, but creating new characters, creating new worlds, introducing characters from Legends and bringing them back to life, just opening the world, I feel like is something that needs to... I feel like Disney's being really safe right now, staying in this world, staying in this time zone. There's a lot of great content that we could focus on, and they should still do that. But expanding the world, I feel like needs to happen. And creating new characters, new worlds, exploring all of that is something that I am a huge believer in. I mean, even with that said, what's happening with The Mandalorian right now is it's legit special. It's some of the best Star Wars I feel like we've ever gotten. It's in the conversation as some of the best stuff. And it's creeping up my favorite shows list too, because this season 2 has been excellent. Everything they've done has made sense. It's fit into the story. It's been flowing well. And the trajectory that they're on right now is just so exciting. I can't wait to see where they go and what decisions they have, because there is a lot that they could play with, and it could get kind of silly. It could get weird, but it could also be some of the best shit we've ever seen. Like, legit. I think we could get there. And I'm fully a believer that this show is about Din. This show is about Grogu. Neither one of them should be killed. Neither one of them should be written off for a character from 40 years ago. That's my belief. That's where I stand on that. Boba Fett is dope. He looks cool. We finally got to see him in like legitimate action. But this show isn't about him. This show is about Din and Grogu and their journey. And Boba is just like Ahsoka was, just like Bo-Katan was. Boba is a character who is along their journey. Will we get something with Boba soon? I think they've warranted that at this point. They've got to do something to explain how he survived, what he's been doing, how he's going about like his life and what's happened since the Sarlacc pit. They definitely planted that seed, and I think we're going to get that. I don't think we're getting that in The Mandalorian. I don't think we are. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I said this in the reaction video. I wouldn't at all be surprised if Boba dies in this finale that we have coming up this week. And Slave 1 gets passed on to our Mando. And it's tough because it's like you introduce him just to kill him off, and it's one of those really difficult situations, but like Boba's had his time. You know, he's been in multiple movies. He's been in the prequels as a child. His story, I feel like, will be told somewhere else. I don't think his story is going to be told in The Mandalorian. And he's going to get this big, heroic send-off, I feel like. And it's going to just launch us into his series. I think he's legitimate going to get some kind of, basically a character bio and get all the attention that he deserves, because he was never meant to be anything special. You guys realize that. He was a side character in the original trilogy. He didn't even get a name until Return of the Jedi, and he just looked doper than everyone else. He's the best bounty hunter. He's an amazing tracker, and I think a few people are gonna die. I think we're gonna lose some folks, and I think he's gonna be obviously the biggest one. And I think it's gonna be a really powerful farewell. And I'm pretty sure Boba fans are gonna be pissed off by that. It's a really risky thing, introducing a character like that, bringing them back to life, and then 3 episodes later taking them out. That's really risky. But I think it'd be more of a risk if you did something negative to Grogu. I think you'd be a huge disservice to our Red Viper if for some reason he was eliminated and didn't get to continue his journey. The show is about them and their journey through this galaxy. We're getting the Ahsoka show. We're going to get the Boba show. I fully believe that. We've been talking ever since Disney picked this up and this whole Star Wars Stories thing started. Boba was... him getting his own standalone was like one of the biggest things. So fans want it. It's going to come. It's going to happen. So that's kind of my intro to this whole situation on the first pod. I have a lot of fun ideas planned for this. I'm going to definitely do and once you find out, like some of y'all already know the answer to this, but I'm going to do a full pod on why so-and-so is my favorite Star Wars movie. I'm going to do a full podcast on why so-and-so is my least favorite movie. We're going to break down the movie rankings today. You guys can do this with me, by the way. There's a really, really cool... Did I lose the site? There's this really, really cool site. It's called sorta.app. Hashtag not sponsored. It's a really, really cool site because it's got... Let me look at it real quick. You could go through your Lord of the Rings films, which is not that hard to rank. It's got Disney live action. It's got starter Pokemon. It's got James Bond. It's got MCU. It's got Disney Pixar. It's got all kinds of really cool... And the way they format it for you to pick your rankings, it literally pits the movies up against each other. So you're like, I like that movie more. And then it brings up another movie like, oh, I like that one more. So it literally puts them up. Instead of just going like, oh, well, this is number 1, this is number 2. It actually does the work for you. And it's really fun because it will allow, as you'll see, it'll allow me to discuss things and explain why I like this movie more than this movie. And the Sorta app is just a really, really fun way to kind of do rankings. I've done this before over on my personal YouTube channel, which that video doesn't live anymore. I took all that stuff down and just kept it all jujitsu over there. But let's just jump into this because I love rankings and I love talking about the movies. Right off the bat, Sorta is giving me a Solo versus The Rise of Skywalker. Which movie is better? Well, I don't determine what's better. I determine what I enjoy more, what I like more. My opinion is that one is better, but better let's make this an opinion piece and not try to be factual about it. Without question, hands down, both of these movies have issues. Solo, Rise of Skywalker, easy choice for me. Rise of Skywalker wins that one. Rogue One versus The Last Jedi. Rogue One, I said it earlier, it's my favorite of all the Disney movies. There's just, the final act of Rogue One is some of the best Star Wars we've ever had. The space battle, Vader, unbelievable stuff. Last Jedi is one of the more silly Star Wars movies. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves. I could go on a little tangent here and there, but one of my biggest pet peeves with storytelling is when a prequel series or a sequel series does something that makes all the other movies look stupid. I don't like when you inject something that's so big, so powerful, something that has so much history that completely shifts the story on stuff. The Last Jedi is full of that. There is so much just nonsense in this movie that has no support or backing or explanation that it doesn't make any sense. There's a conversation going on over in Discord right now that I saw earlier, and if you're not in our Discord, we have a dedicated Star Wars channel, free for all. You could talk about Star Wars, anything you want. That link is always down below for you YouTubers. And I think on podcasts, you could put links in the descriptions and stuff. But yeah, the link to our Discord will be there because talking Star Wars is great. But the perfect example, they're talking about Rogue One and blowing up the Death Star. In The Last Jedi, they used a spaceship basically as a world destruction bomb. How on earth did no one ever in the history of the world, and we're dealing with a lot of time, by the time we get to The Last Jedi, we've dealt with a lot of really smart people, we've dealt with a lot of just advanced minds and technology. You're telling me not one person ever came up with the idea of strapping a droid into a spaceship and flying it into the Death Star? At hyperspeed? Not once? No one ever came up with that idea? No? You can't convince me that scene was dope. The audio and the visual was so incredible. But to inject that into the 8th movie, it's like, wait, how dumb were all the previous people prior that they never once thought of the idea to use a spaceship as a weapon? I don't know. One in a million chance. You take the chance. You take the chance. You take the chance. You fly a big ass ship light speed into the Death Star, see what happens. I would imagine you won't be able to control the laser that's about to blow up a planet. Just kind of my thought. That's kind of where my brain goes on stuff. But Rogue One or The Last Jedi, I'm picking Rogue One. Revenge of the Sith versus The Force Awakens. This is a good one. Force Awakens, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was safe. I thought it was exactly what it needed to be. Reintroducing Star Wars back into the world. Reintroducing Star Wars back into the fandom that thought that the prequels was the last Star Wars movie we were ever getting. I appreciate what they did. I appreciate the foundation that JJ laid with The Force Awakens. I thought it was a fun story. I thought it was really good. And I thought it's exactly what it needed to be under the circumstances and in the context of where everything was Star Wars. Revenge of the Sith is spectacular. Revenge of the Sith is one of my favorite movies of all time. It has its problems like every other prequel movie does. The dialogue is weird. The green screen / blue screen, I'm not sure which one they used, made things very awkward and weird. But like I will talk about with all of the prequels, when you strip them down, get rid of the horrible dialogue, get rid of the random walking to nowhere and they're just in a big giant room. You strip all that stuff down, and the story of the prequels they're fantastic. Revenge of the Sith is the capper to that. Watching the final turn of Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader, his fight with Obi-Wan, and his just despair for what he's trying to save was just so good. The lines from Obi-Wan get me emotional. They're so good. That's like probably the best dialogue in all of the prequels. I thought we were brothers. You were the chosen one. You were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them. I loved you, Anakin. Like all that stuff, like those lines hit really, really hard. And a common theme that you'll kind of see from my movie rankings has a lot to do with the emotional impact it has on me as a fan. So, Revenge of the Sith for me over Force Awakens. Oh, Phantom Menace versus Attack of the Clones. That's such a difficult decision. It seriously is a difficult decision. But Phantom Menace, I feel like it didn't need to exist. They should have started the prequels with Attack of the Clones. I didn't need to see Anakin as a child, especially after seeing Broom Boy later in the sequel trilogy. Just kind of hurts Anakin, I feel like. I could talk about that if anyone is curious. That said, Attack of the Clones has some of the most worthless dialogue and scenes that Star Wars has ever had. It still has important moments. It still has very, very key storytelling elements to Anakin and his development into flowing to the dark side. Phantom Menace introduced Darth Maul. Phantom Menace had pod racing. The Phantom Menace is also what introduced midichlorians to our world and Jar Jar Binks. So, picking between these two movies, it is so hard. I feel like I go back and forth on them every time. But primarily because without the Phantom Menace, there is no Darth Maul, I picked the Phantom Menace over Attack of the Clones. Empire Strikes Back versus Return of the Jedi. I'm surprised that we're getting this so early because it's going to kind of tip my hand on what I think is the best Star Wars movie of all time. I don't know if this is the right place for it. This should have been saved for later. But, spoiler alert, top 2 movies in Star Wars history. Yes, adding that Tusken Raider scene is what really makes the Clone Wars, because again, like I was talking about, it's the progression of Anakin to the dark side. I think it's really important. So Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. I will go down on history in saying that Empire Strikes Back is probably the better movie. From top to bottom, it's probably the better movie. But I will debate you, and I will take it all the way to my grave because I do not flip-flop on these anymore. I used to flip-flop on these like crazy. Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie of all time. Spoiler alert. It's impossible to not reveal that picking between these two. The moments in Return of the Jedi, and actually we could just save that till the end. I'll explain why later. But I'm picking Return of the Jedi over Empire Strikes Back. Solo versus A New Hope. The most pointless movie in Star Wars history versus the movie that started it all. A New Hope, without question. Not even a debate. A New Hope versus The Rise of Skywalker. I think that's an easy one also for me. I'm going New Hope there. The Force Awakens versus The Last Jedi. Based off of what I've said to this point, is there any debate as to what I'm going to pick? I will take The Force Awakens over Last Jedi all day. Rogue One versus The Force Awakens. I think this is a difficult decision. Because I really like The Force Awakens. I think it's a great movie. Again, I think it was perfect for what it needed to be. But I think Rogue One has hands down some of the best Star Wars that we've ever seen. I can't say that about The Force Awakens. There's really nothing in that movie that's just like, oh shit, that's a top 5 moment for me. Rogue One has that. Vader just wiping fools out is one of the best moments that we've ever had in Star Wars. It's something that we've all been waiting for a long time. So I'm going Rogue One over The Force Awakens. Revenge of the Sith versus Rogue One. It's a tough decision. Again, I got to go with the emotional factor to it. Rogue One, like I mentioned, has Vader in that space battle. But Revenge of the Sith launches Vader into being that character that we know. And Revenge of the Sith just brings more emotions out of me. So I'm going Revenge of the Sith. Empire Strike Back versus Attack of the Clones. Don't need to say anything there. Phantom Menace versus Empire Strikes Back. Not even a question. The Last Jedi versus Solo. Wow. That's a tough one. That is also one that I have in the past gone back and forth on. But I think I'm pretty locked into my beliefs and locked into my rankings on this one. It's so hard because everything I say about Solo could almost apply to The Last Jedi as well. My main cause for not liking Solo is damage that they do to one of the most iconic characters in the history of Star Wars. That's my main argument against The Last Jedi. They took a guy that we've known for so long and gave him character traits that don't exist without actually visually presenting what happened to him. Solo does have Donald Glover. That's true. Him as Lando was spectacular, and we'll definitely talk about him more later. But again, I am on record saying Solo absolutely adds nothing to the universe. At least The Last Jedi adds something to the universe. We've got characters in Finn that I personally love. We've got more closure with Luke. We had the moment with Yoda, which, look, The Last Jedi has a lot of poop in it, but there are still, there are moments in The Last Jedi where I'm like, ooh, that's a good moment. It just then immediately gets overshadowed by something really dumb. The irony of this podcast being Flying Solo is the idea that it's not my favorite. Last Jedi it is. The Rise of Skywalker versus The Last Jedi. This, I feel like, is the debate that best friends break up over. Relationships get destroyed. Friendships gone. Fistfights break out. The Rise of Skywalker versus The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson's just absolute shit show of a movie versus J.J. Abrams' attempt to fix what he started with The Force Awakens. Based off that comment alone, I think you guys know where I'm going. The Rise of Skywalker. Thank you very much. The Last Jedi versus A New Hope. A New Hope. A New Hope versus The Force Awakens. A New Hope. Rogue One versus A New Hope. A New Hope. A New Hope versus Revenge of the Sith. A New Hope. Solo versus Attack of the Clones. Who cares? But because of that one Anakin scene alone and his development of growing, well, is it considered growing if things are happening in a negative way? His development into Vader alone makes Attack of the Clones better than Solo because it actually adds to the story. Attack of the Clones, Rise of Skywalker. I'm going with Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker or the Phantom Menace. Rise of Skywalker. Empire Strikes Back. The Rise of Skywalker. Empire Strikes Back. Last Jedi vs. Empire. Empire vs. Force Awakens. Empire. Rogue One vs. Empire. Empire vs. Revenge of the Sith. Empire. A New Hope versus Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back. And there we have it. There's the rankings. Done. Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, The Force Awakens, The Rise of Skywalker, The Last Jedi, The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and flying Solo at the bottom. Solo. A Star Wars story that nobody ever asked for. That is my list. That is where they live. Without going into great detail, because I'm going to do a full pod on this, we're going to talk about it. Prequels better than the sequels. I mean, the best prequel is better than the best sequel, but the worst prequel is worse than the worst sequel. So I think it kind of balances out for me. I mean, the fact that Revenge of the Sith is in my top 5 says a lot for the prequels, I feel like. But Return of the Jedi is my favorite movie for the simple fact that emotions carry so much weight. It's like, sure, we got the Luke, I'm your father. Well, it's not really what he says. He says, I am your father. There's no Luke there. But, see, I'm smart about some stuff. I remember some things. Like, a really interesting component of storytelling, and I read this a while back, and it's kind of something that's hooked me into feeling this way about this story. I would be willing to bet there's a very small percentage of people who watched episode 4, 5, and 6 live. I'm not that old. I'm not sure if we have anyone here who has done that, but the majority, and I'm willing to bet the greater majority of people have watched them in a binge style, where they've watched them within days of each other, or the first time they ever saw them, they weren't years apart. When you watch The Empire Strikes Back and Vader hits you with the whole Luke, I am your father stuff, and Luke starts realizing what's going on, the sadness, and just the bad guys are winning, like, holy shit. Did people back then watching live believe Darth Vader in that moment? He's a bad guy. We heard him and Palpatine strategizing, figuring out how to get him on their team because of how powerful Luke potentially could be. Are we really supposed to believe Vader in that moment? Is that reveal supposed to be that impactful? And then when you go and watch Return of the Jedi and Luke is sitting there with Yoda as he's dying in his bed, and this is one of the scenes that just guts me every single time I watch it, and it's one of the reasons why it's my favorite movie of all time. That Yoda Luke scene carries so much weight. Is Darth Vader my father? Yoda kind of rolls away, ignores the question, doesn't want to answer him, and Luke is persistent. Yoda, I must know. Is Darth Vader my father? And then Yoda gives us the real reveal. Yoda's the one who's like, yeah, it's true. It's him. He is your father. We lied to you. Well, lies from a certain point of view. And Yoda was actually surprised that Vader would reveal that information. So That moment is one of those moments that just is so much more overpowering than anything emotion-wise, I feel like, in The Empire Strikes Back, that it gives it a little bit of a boost. Ewoks, probably one of the more silly situations in all of Star Wars. That whole battle was silly. Like, let's be real here. It was kind of silly, and it doesn't take away from the massive amount of impact emotionally that movie has on me. Add to the fact that we get official Vader babyface turn. We get the official redemption of Darth Vader. Anakin Skywalker is back. That moment where Luke takes off his helmet because he wants to see his kid with his own eyes because he never had the chance to ever see them. That's one of the things George got right. He never got to see him with his own eyes. Yoda telling Luke he's the last Jedi was false, and Yoda knew that. Kind of made things kind of hard when a bunch of other Jedi are roaming around. George loves creating his own plot holes, but it's the way it goes. The moment that father-son had in that moment, just all the interactions with Luke and Vader in Return of the Jedi were so powerful. You knew there was something eating at Vader. You knew he didn't want to do what he was told by the Emperor to do. You knew there was something fighting in him, tearing him apart, and it was Luke. And then Luke saving his dad. And having that funeral for him. A solo funeral, because he was by himself, obviously. Just closing the chapter on that story, so powerful. So much there. And it's just, there are moments, and there's a couple more, but again, I've already revealed too much. I don't even need to do the podcast on that anymore. But that's why I recognize Return of the Jedi as my favorite versus Empire Strikes Back, which I know is historically people's top choice. It is overall the better movie. It doesn't have Ewoks hitting stormtroopers in the head with sticks and knocking them out cold, apparently killing them. Just kind of silly. I mean, it was supposed to be Wookiees. That would have made a lot more sense. But Wookie dolls would not sell the same way that Ewok toys would sell. So it makes sense why they made that decision. And Solo being at the bottom, it's not a movie anyone asked for. It's not anything that we needed. They didn't give us anything new. They didn't give anything that enhanced the story of Star Wars as a whole. The way Han Solo got his name, the way Han Solo, the decision that he made to keep the name, it's just some of the silliest shit ever, and it literally makes no sense. Like little things like Han speaking in Chewie's language and then never doing it again. That irks me. Donald Glover was fantastic as Lando. He was fantastic. All Solo really did was show us things we already knew existed. They showed us the Kessel Run, which was cool. I am on record saying Solo is a really fun movie. It's a lot of fun. It is a really, really enjoyable flick. But in the context of the Star Wars universe, it's the worst one. It gives... We don't even... At the end of Solo, you didn't even see the Han Solo that we know. He still seemed like a optimistic, cheery dude. Like, oh, hey, the girl I love just flew away. Oh, well, no big deal. Like, what? We didn't even get to see the transformation. I feel like what happened to him there didn't explain enough why he is the way he is. And it's a really silly thing, but I feel like that whole movie was created just to explain what those damn dice were. The dice were introduced in, was it The Force Awakens? And then everyone was like, what the fuck are those? We've got all these movies. Han's never talked about these dice before. We've had so many adventures. You would think he'd grab the dice before he gave the ship back to Han, or before he gave it back to Lando in The Return of the Jedi. Like, oh, hey, there's something important there. Let me grab those. I don't know. We found out how Han got the Falcon. We already knew that. Didn't need to see it. Doesn't add anything. I didn't need to know why Han and Lando acted the way they did when they met each other in Cloud City. I didn't need to see that. I say it in a little teaser video. Some things are just better left unsaid and unexplained. That's just my opinion, though. Solo was a lot of fun. They also introduced this idea that droids have free will. Then why in every other movie, which Solo is really early in the timeline, why was that never again shown that they have the ability to... I don't want to do that. It's just one of those weird things that, like, you introduce that in a movie and then it forever is ignored based off of the timeline. It's a difficult thing. And that's why Solo is at the bottom. The most interesting thing out of that movie is the Kira Maul relationship. Maul's appearance made no sense. Why did he have to stand up, show his legs, his robotic legs, and then pull out his lightsaber? It's like, they only did that was like, hey, look, casual fans, Darth Maul is alive. You probably don't know that. You probably didn't watch the animated shows to see that he came back to life with robot legs. But hey, it's him, I promise. It's the same guy. It was just too much that didn't enhance anything. And Alden Ehrenreich, I feel bad for the guy. I have not talked about the new shows yet. I'm going to talk about them in like a couple minutes. Alden Ehrenreich was in such a bad spot just because it's like we had Han Solo on screen. It was months that we actually had Han Solo on screen. Harrison Ford was there. That's just a really difficult thing. And to ask this guy, who's a fine actor, to come play Han Solo while Harrison Ford is still Han Solo, that's tough. That's tough. It didn't work for me, personally. I thought Lando was the best part of that whole movie. Donald Glover did fantastic. So those are my rankings. Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, The Force Awakens, The Rise of Skywalker, The Last Jedi, The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Solo. You're going to notice with a lot of the stuff I talk about when it comes to storytelling is going to fall along the lines of, does it actually make sense? Something could be cool. Something could look great. But does it make sense? Does injecting something into a prequel hurt any of the older movies which take place after? A perfect example of this. In The Last Jedi, we see Princess Leia, General Leia, get blasted out of her ship and blasted out into space. Done. 100%. She's dead. All of a sudden, her eyes open up, her hand does a little pulse, and then she starts flying through space like Mary Poppins. In that moment, when that scene happened, it made zero sense. Because I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. That's not why. Because there was a conversation between Leia and Han that took place in The Force Awakens, where it was essentially a reunion for them. They hadn't seen each other a while. Things went bad when Ben took off and did what he did. And they both made a comment, we just went back to what we know best. For Han, that's being a smuggler with the last name Solo. That's Leia going back into politics, because that's what she does best. She was a politician. who had a father and a brother who were super powerful in the Force. She has it too, obviously. Never trained. Up to that point, we had no knowledge of her being trained. No knowledge of her ever even caring about connecting to the Force. Obviously, the Force works in mysterious ways. And that's always my favorite explanation for things. Why? Because of the Force. Not because of midichlorians, because of the Force. That's why. But for someone to be able to fly through space and not die is pushing it. Her being able to communicate with Luke using the Force through the mind is fine. It's kind of out of her control. Luke might have been initiating that, which he was. But the scene they gave us in The Rise of Skywalker that showed Leia training and having Luke teach her and her actually beating Luke in a fight would have made a billion times more sense to be in The Last Jedi than being in The Rise of Skywalker. As ridiculous as that scene looked, it would have made more sense. Like, oh shit, she is powerful. She did try to train. She learned. Luke taught her stuff. There was a moment where she tapped into the Force and was embracing it, was trying to use it. But because certain scenes are out of order, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And something that's going to happen, we're going to talk about the new shows in a second, and something that is potentially going to happen in one of those new shows, which I cannot wait for if it's true, it's going to make a line that happens in Empire Strikes Back. No, Return of the Jedi that make a lot of sense. So let's jump into these new shows. I have the list here. Where'd they go? So Disney dropped a massive bomb. A massive bomb. But before that, there's a comment that I just saw that I want to hit on. All three movies do not make any sense at all. Yes and no. The problem with the sequel trilogy, I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. All three new movies. I'm assuming just the trilogy, not including Solo or Rogue One there. The reason why they don't make sense is because there's just complete disarray in the storytelling. JJ set a foundation. Rian Johnson had an opinion. He kind of obliterated all those plans. And then JJ jumped back in front and tried to fix all those plans. There was no plans to bring Palpatine back. Did that make sense? It didn't bother me as much as a lot of people. But he had no choice. Rian Johnson killed the main villain. Snoke died in the most ridiculous way possible. Literally the most ridiculous way possible. Snoke was killed. So they had, I don't think it was fans. I think it was, what the fuck do we do? The good guys won in every way possible. What can we possibly do to bring some kind of bad guy into this so that we can make this story feel like, oh, the bad guys have a chance to win? I mean, obviously it all goes on to Kathleen Kennedy. I've talked about that a lot. She gave I'm not mad at Rian Johnson. I disagree with a lot of what he believes should be Star Wars. I disagree with a lot of his opinions on how things should work. But I don't blame him. I'm not mad at him. He's a director who took a risk, made a movie that made over $1 billion. Kathleen Kennedy's the one who let the directors do whatever they wanted. The original trilogy has different directors, but George laid the foundation. Start to finish, this is my story. Regardless of what you do with your movies, Darth Vader's getting redeemed at the end. And he's Luke's father. Point A to point B. That's the beginning, that's the end. Do whatever you want to get there. This is the story. That doesn't exist with the sequels. Phasma's another character. Completely worthless. How do you cast someone like that and they get 10 minutes on screen between two movies? Ryan did things in them, and I get a lot of kickback that JJ's the one who set up Luke to be who he is, and it's no, I disagree with that completely. I completely disagree with that idea that it was set up by JJ for him to be a complete hermit quitter and give up completely on the Force in The Force Awakens. There was one line. Han said that he left. He gave it all up and left. But why? Where did he go? What was the point of him leaving? His academy was just destroyed. He went to go find the first Jedi temple. I wouldn't go to the first Jedi temple to go quit. I wouldn't go to the first Jedi temple to disconnect from the Force. Why would I go there? I'd go back to like Tatooine or something. Why would I go hunt? Why would I give up everything to go hunt for the first Jedi temple to go quit on the Force? That doesn't make sense to me. He went there to go find answers. He went there to go figure shit out. Because that's what Luke Skywalker does. The guy stood toe to toe with the Emperor and got Force lightninged. But his nephew's going to scare him enough to want to commit murder? Ben Solo wasn't that strong. At least he didn't appear to be that strong. And the other argument, oh, well, Obi-Wan and Yoda did the same thing in the prequels. Nope, they didn't. Obi-Wan and Yoda, they took off to hide as a strategy to survive, keep the Jedi alive. They knew they were defeated. They were making a strategic decision to leave. Luke quitting could have been Han's interpretation of the situation. Exactly. We're talking about a guy who, regardless of what he says in The Force Awakens, he didn't believe in the Force. That little speech that he gives on the Falcon is one of my favorite moments in that movie. But we're talking about a guy who doesn't believe in that. Oh, blasters, you know? So I wouldn't even take what Han said about him giving up and quitting or leaving or what exactly he said as oh, that's the base. No, it's not. You could have easily cut to Luke sitting there praying like Grogu did. You don't go to the first Jedi temple to quit. I don't know. I wouldn't. If I'm Luke Skywalker, literally the most optimistic character in the history of cinema, in my opinion, the guy believed he could turn Darth Vader back to the light. Who thinks that? Who thinks like that? Who thinks like that? So it's just stuff like that which caused a lot of just disconnect between the movies. Because then you immediately see that wasn't JJ's intent, because he retcons all of it. When Rey tries to throw the lightsaber in the fire, Luke catches it. No, you don't do that to your weapon. So if JJ agreed with what Rian did, he would not have done that in that moment. He would have reiterated the idea that the Jedi needs to end, instead of finishing the trilogy with Rey being a freaking Jedi. You know what I mean? Rey calling herself a Skywalker bothered me a lot. I really wanted her to embrace the Palpatine name. Change it for the good. I am Rey Palpatine. I'm going to show you that I am a powerful female Jedi with a father or grandfather who is the biggest piece of shit in the galaxy, in the history of the friggin' galaxy. I'm going to change your mind about that name. I'm going to prove to you that the Palpatine name is not a negative one. That's what I wanted to see. Her lightsaber was kind of dope, though, I'm not going to lie. Embrace the name. It is yours. Make it better. It's just simple. It's just very small, simple details that I feel like that I personally would have changed. But no more I don't want to be negative. I try not to be I try not to overhype the negative, even though I have really strong opinions about certain things. But I have reasons for all of it, which is what I try to harp on, you know? Like I was saying before I went on that tangent, which will probably happen a lot on this show, calling it a show. It's very easy to get me off on a tangent talking about Star Wars, which is why thankfully I have a script. I'm going to follow it to the best of my ability. I'm going to try to stay on time. But Star Wars dropped a massive bomb on their earnings call. It was the earnings call, I believe, the other day. They dropped 15 new shows. Holy cow. How exciting. How exciting is it to be a Star Wars fan right now? Seriously. I thought this shit was over. After the sequel trilogy, I thought this shit was like, with the way the community and the fandom and just how toxic everything got and how angry everyone was and how divisive, I thought this shit was over. I'm like, Star Wars ain't coming back. Star Wars isn't coming back. Like, how are they going to bounce back from this? You want to know how? Favreau and Filoni, that's how. That's how. Bow down to Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. They have revived the fan base. Let's go through some of these. I'm not gonna harp on all of them. And I'm gonna talk about the ones that I'm most excited for and why. We're getting an Obi-Wan show. Ahsoka. Rangers of the New Republic. Andor, which is gonna be Cassian Andor from Rogue One. Bad Batch. A droid story, something called Visions, 10 short films celebrating the Star Wars universe, a Lando show, The Acolyte, and then a movie was announced, Rogue Squadron. Do I think this is too much? I do. It's kind of my same problem that I have with the MCU right now. I don't think everyone needs a spinoff. I don't think everyone deserves a spinoff. And I think the obvious focus on all of these new pieces of content, with the exception of The Acolyte, is that right, Acolyte? All of these shows are taking place within the same time zone of stuff that we've already seen. No new characters. No new worlds. Well, maybe we'll get new worlds. Who knows? I 100% don't need a droid story. I love R2-D2 and C-3PO. They're amazing. But they're amazing for what they are. Comedy relief, sidekicks. I don't know if they need an entire show. Does Cassian Andor, like, I really enjoyed him in Rogue One. I'm really interested to learn more about him. But he's dead. How invested are we really going to get in a character that we know passes away the way he does? You know? That's tough. Bad Batch. I'm not that familiar with them. I know they were from season 7 of the Clone Wars. They sound cool. Rangers of the New Republic. A show that's taking place within the Mandalorian timeline. Assuming Cara Dune's going to be there. Assuming the knuckleheads... Well, I don't want to call Filoni a knucklehead, but he's one of the pilots. Assuming those pilots will be there. It's fine. That's not jacking me up. I'm not getting crazy excited about that. Visions. Sounds like that's like a Star Wars anime. So you know how I feel about anime. Sounds interesting. 10 short films celebrating the Star Wars universe. That sounds cool. Lando. I don't know if I need a whole show about Lando. I feel like we got enough Lando. Donald Glover, I mean, if it's not him, I couldn't imagine them doing this show. It has to be Donald Glover coming back. Because he was spectacular. I feel like he nailed Lando. See? I said something nice about Solo. Rogue Squadron. It's not going to be a video game adaptation, according to what I read. December of 2023. All right. It's not what I was hoping for the next movie, but we'll see. But I cannot explain to you through word. I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best. I cannot tell you how freaking excited I am for Obi-Wan. And I saw some stuff yesterday that made me almost want to just freak out. When Disney announced they were doing standalone stories, I didn't need Rogue One. Turned out to be a really good movie. I 100 million, billion, quadrillion never ever wanted Solo. Didn't need to happen. There are some standalones that don't need to happen. Someone in chat's mentioning Yoda. No. Please, God, no. The mystery of Yoda is what makes him so cool to me. I do not need a full backstory on Yoda. I don't need it. Some things need to be left alone. Yoda's one of them. But Obi-Wan? Bringing Ewan McGregor back? Easily the best part of the prequels. His performance as Obi-Wan. He was so good. And Hayden Christensen's coming back? Hell yes. I want that so bad for him. And something I saw a video from Star Wars Theory. He found an interview with McGregor, and it sounded like there was potential that we were going to see Anakin during Order 66 in the temple slaughtering younglings. What? What? Are you kidding me? Is that really gonna happen? And then he said something that made my head almost explode. What if that's where Grogu's at? And someone at the last minute pulls him out. What? That sounds incredible. Like, my original idea for the Obi-Wan series didn't even include Vader. Even though it would be kind of weird to do a Obi-Wan show that takes place after episode 3 without including Vader somehow. But the Obi-Wan show is that's the first thing that I went to. I want a show between episode 3, episode 4. I want to see Obi-Wan on whatever adventures he was on. I want to see him communicating with Qui-Gon because that's what Yoda gave him to do as his mission. I'm going to teach you how to communicate and use the Force to talk to your old master. Now, I hope that happens and they don't reveal it. Don't tell me Qui-Gon's coming back. Just show it to me on screen. You don't even need to let us know. No spoilers with something like that, please. And then you insert the fact that Hayden Christensen's coming back. I'm excited. I don't know if you could tell. And something I mentioned earlier. So there's a line in Return of the Jedi that always made me scratch my head. And I think this is the opportunity for them to actually cash in on it. When Luke is talking to Vader, when Luke's shackled, taking him on his way to go see the Emperor, Luke's having a conversation about, I feel the good in you, come back to the light, this and that. And Vader says, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. When? When did that ever happen? We've never seen it. As far as I know, that's not in any piece of content. Again, I'm not an encyclopedia. But in A New Hope, Obi-Wan never tries to convince Vader of switching. We're going to get an emotional moment, an emotional fight, one last time between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. And if the right people are doing it, which from what I've read they are, that might be one of the most emotional moments in the history of Star Wars. I'm picturing it in my head now. Obi-Wan's last chance. He failed once. I would imagine Vader's on the hunt for him. There's no way Vader... I mean, it's set 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. I don't know if there's going to be flashbacks, but there's no way he's not going to be looking for Obi-Wan. That's a line, for some reason, that's always kind of... I think that's one of the primary reasons why I've wanted an Obi-Wan show when I knew all this stuff was coming, because there's still something there. Between Obi-Wan and Vader, there's obviously something still there. So, the opportunity of getting that, I think it was going to be fantastic. Ahsoka. Of course, Dave Filoni and Favreau are going to be behind that one. They're going to oversee it. Rosario Dawson looked dope in The Mandalorian. We could totally get Inquisitors in the Obi-Wan series. They're hunting the remaining Jedi that survived Order 66. Yeah. I'm down. This Ahsoka show is essentially, I feel like, going to be the sequel to Rebels. It'd be dope to see Rex come back. And even if they want to introduce Ezra in The Mandalorian, that could kind of propel that story. Because right now, as far as we know, Ezra and Thrawn are out in the outer reaches. They got sent off. And Ahsoka with Sabine left to go find them. So that could be that. Live action, Ahsoka. Live action, Sabine. Live action, Thrawn. Live action, Ezra. I'm down. Cal from Fallen Order is my number one choice to show up in Mandalorian. I don't think it's going to be him. So those two shows, those are the two that I'm really excited about. I'm going to check out some other one. Obviously, I'll check out all the content. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about the Acolyte. So according to what I read, the High Republic, an era that takes place hundreds of years before the Phantom Menace, has not yet been explored in film or television in the Star Wars universe. It will make its much anticipated live-action debut in a series led by Leslie Headland, the creator of Russian Doll on Netflix. Haven't heard of it. It'll be a mystery thriller that takes place near the end of the High Republic. Yeah, sign me up for that. This is the show. This is the piece of content that's going to explore out of the time zone that we know. Cannot wait to see what they potentially do with that. I am not familiar with Leslie's work. Russian Doll, have y'all seen it? Is it good? What do you think? That, I think, could be a really, really fantastic piece of content. And if it does well, it could explode for content outside of our comfortable bubble that we are familiar with. Because I think that's probably the primary reason why we haven't explored these other time zones or other places, is because you introduce someone like Darth Revan, it's like, who the fuck is that? I don't know Darth Revan. Where was he in the original trilogy? Like, those are the questions that you're going to get, which as a creator, you don't ever want to hear those questions because it makes things harder to explain. Even though they do it to themselves all the time. But this feels like it could be the piece of content that's like, introduces the world to more than just the sagas that we've been. There is a rumor, though. Well, I don't know if it's a rumor. It's more theory. There's a theory. I've kind of talked about it on stream before. I personally, and I've said this about Boba, I said this about Ahsoka, I've said this about lots of characters. I don't want Mace Windu to show up in Mandalorian. It would, story-wise, it would be interesting because Mace killed Jango, who is Boba's dad. and would give Boba a chance at revenge, even though he'd probably get slaughtered by him. But if we bring back Mace, and I love Sam Jackson, he's amazing. He'd be too old? Nah. Jedi could live a long time. I feel like we creep into MCU territory where no one's ever actually dead. Because we've brought back Maul. In this series alone, we brought back Boba Fett. We're going to bring back Mace Windu too. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility because we've seen people survive Force Lightning. We've seen people survive getting their arm sliced off. Like hell, everyone gets their arm cut off in Star Wars. We've seen Jedi be able to handle falls from really high buildings. We haven't seen anyone survive all three of those all at once. We never saw his body. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could be alive. I just think you start creeping into... And I don't think it's a bad idea. I think story-wise it would work. It all depends on what he's up to, you know? But... It just, you creep into like, oh, okay, another person dead, they'll probably just come back. That didn't take away the impact for Iron Man. Spoiler alert. Or Spidey's in Infinity War. But yeah, it starts creeping into well, is anybody actually dead? And I feel like that's a dangerous kind of place to play. I mean, I even think them including Ezra would be too much. It'd be too much Rebels. It'd be too much Filoni. That's why I think someone like Cal would make a lot more sense. Diversify your content. Expand it a little more. Give us a Jedi that maybe not a lot of people know about, but want to learn about. Until it plays out, I'm always going to side with the idea that is new and potentially fresh. Save Ezra for Ahsoka's show. Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's it for me. I hit on everything that I wanted to hit on for this first episode. Oh, Southern. Don't get me started on Broom Kid, please. Oh, no. Might have to save that for a whole nother podcast. Broom Kid irks me so much. I love the concept behind it. The idea that anybody, anywhere can be a Force user. Okay, like I didn't like that at first, but it's fine. The Force should not be reserved for the Skywalkers. But, again, presenting something in a movie where we have so many years of history and track record. This goes back to the whole does it make sense argument for me. We were introduced to Broom Kid at the end of The Last Jedi, and he used the Force to move a broomstick. How? This kid might not even know what a Jedi or what the Force is based off of his living conditions. The reason why it doesn't make sense, because we were introduced to Anakin Skywalker as a child. The highest M count of anyone ever, even more than Master Yoda. The Force obviously guided him, but he never Force touched anything. He never moved anything with the Force. He didn't know that shit was there. He couldn't, and he's supposed to be you're telling me Broom Kid's more powerful than Anakin Skywalker? Is that what you're going to tell me? Most of my issues with things is not about the concept, but it's about how they fit. Like the idea of midichlorians as an example. It's like I don't like the idea of inserting science into the Force in Star Wars, because science is meant to be not like, there's not any wiggle room with science. There shouldn't be. But you didn't need to inject science into Star Wars. Like, it doesn't fit for me. But the reason, like the concept behind it, whatever, it is what it is. It's the injection of something like that into the story, which is like injecting someone like Broom Kid into the story. We've already been introduced to the most powerful person ever, according to the story. And we met him as a child. Probably the same age as Broom Kid. But it's just like, all of my issues surround the story. It has nothing to do with the idea that the Force should be limited to certain people. I mean, that's okay too. It is okay. It's okay that not everyone could be a Jedi. Like, that's okay. But I get that that's the message, and it's fine. But the fact that we had met a child who was considered the most powerful ever couldn't... Well, not that he couldn't, he didn't. He didn't move anything. He didn't physically use the Force because he doesn't know how to. It doesn't work that... At least we've been told all of these years that it doesn't... If it worked that way, why do these kids go through such intensive training? Because they have to learn it. You don't get just to start force pulling stuff to you just cause. It doesn't happen. Like, this isn't Harry Potter, where you're given a wand and you just, oh. Even though I love Harry Potter. It's one of my favorite things ever. That's what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm too obsessive about cohesive stories, but all these movies are tied in. They're all connected. They're all in the same timeline. Grogu, it's been confirmed that he had training. Grogu was able to force choke and force heal because he was already in the Jedi Academy. They just confirmed that. Which, if they never confirmed that, would have been a huge hole. Like, wait, wait, what? But like good storytellers, because Filoni and Favreau are phenomenal storytellers, they made sure to fill that gap. Like, we can't have this baby, this 50-year-old baby, using the Force, but we got to reveal that he was trained. I don't know, maybe he saw Anakin force choking people while he was at the temple. It's hard. You can't fully criticize something like that until it's over. You got to wait till it's over. If they wrapped up the series and they never explained how he had the ability to force choke or to stop that giant fucking monster, like, Broom Kid is just a symbol that the Force is still out there. Well, that's a terrible example, because he didn't prove that it's just out there. He proved that he could use it, which is a little too far, a little too much. But like I told you, it's going to be really easy to get me on tangents. So now that's it from me. But I think it was a really fun first pod. Revealed a little bit more of my history and my knowledge, in quotes, knowledge. Don't attack me in the YouTube comments for not reacting to the seismic charge. Episode 2 is so forgettable. It didn't ring a bell right away as I was watching. I realized it after the fact. I'm going to try to, like, in my mind, I'm like, weekly. Every Monday, we're doing this, boom. But in the reality, I'm going to do it when it makes sense. I'm going to do it when I want to do it. I'm going to do it when there's stuff to talk about. And of course, you guys ever have ideas, let me know. Join our Discord. Find us over on YouTube, Nikki Steven React. Any topics that we could talk about, send them in. I'm still confused about the Mando timeline. Is Mando happening after the death of Palpatine? Yes. It takes place after Return of the Jedi. But theories flying from what we saw in a couple episodes ago in The Mandalorian is that they're brewing something. We don't know if someone is trying to clone Palp currently, or if someone's working on Snoke, or if Moff Gideon is trying to just turn himself into Darth Vader. which the way he dresses, it looks very clear that he might be. There is potential speculation that we could be building the First Order. There were kind of hints at that in this last episode. Mandalorian is going to do a lot of good for a lot of stuff. It's going to connect a lot of dots and explain a lot of things that might need to be explained. And I'm all for it. I think it's the perfect time zone. It's the perfect creators. It's a really good vehicle to kind of fill some gaps, explain some things. They've done it before. Grogu used Force Heal before Rey did in The Rise of Skywalker. I'm just so jacked up and so excited for where we're going with Star Wars. So, really appreciate all y'all stopping by, hanging out, listening to me rant, do my thing with Star Wars. This is so exciting. I had so much fun. I appreciate all y'all very much. And until next time, may the Force be with you. Always.